Are you confused by the bajillion different methods of joining yarn? Watch this video to see me rank the 9 most popular methods according to my personal preference. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Cletus and I aim to bring you guys fun, informative, and entertaining videos all about knitting. If you find any value in this video, please consider subscribing and ringing that bell notification. Now, let's get started. I remember when I first started teaching myself how to knit online and I googled how to join yarn, so many different methods came up. So that got me to thinking, what are the most popular methods and what are their pros and cons? So 2 days ago, I asked over on Instagram, what was your go-to method of joining yarn? And thank you so much to the 73 of you guys who responded. Today, I'll be talking through them all and ranking them according to my preference. For this video, my main criteria for judging these methods of joining yarn will be speed, difficulty, overall appearance, and any other pros and cons. I have noticed that the majority of joining yarn methods fall into 3 main categories: knots and weaving, knitting with 2 strands, and splicing. As you can see, with my insane amount of budget, I just got some cards, wrote down the names, and I'll be placing them in the order of my most favorite to the least. First, let's get started with the knots and weaving category. The first method in this category I'm gonna call just keep knitting.
Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
This is the second most popular method amongst my viewers, with 15 of you guys regularly using this technique. In this technique, when you want to switch over to a new ball of yarn, simply make a loop around the right needle and begin knitting with a new strand. Easy. In terms of speed, it's definitely quick. There's no preparations or extra tools that you need to use. Difficulty, again, very easy and probably the first technique that a lot of us learn to use. A big drawback though is the appearance. With this technique, your stitches become very loose around this area and you'll kind of have to pull and tug on the ends to finesse it a little bit. If you choose to switch yarn in the middle of a row, it will leave a pretty noticeable gap. To fix this gap, you will have to either tie a knot, weave in the ends into opposite directions, or if you want to be an A+ student, do a duplicate stitch on the back. For now, I'm going to put it right in the middle. The next technique is tying a simple knot. Knots might be one of the most divisive things out there in the world of knitting. Some people are extremely against knots, and some people like me, we don't really care. I like to tie a knot using the new strand onto the old and pull it as close as possible to the work and begin knitting with that. Other people I've seen just putting 2 ends together and tying a simple basic knot together. It's quick, it's extremely easy. The appearance could be iffy because there is a 50-50% chance of your knot ending up on the right side of your work. But that's easily fixed by finessing it a little bit or taking a little crochet hook and pulling it towards the back. Right now, I'm gonna put it quite towards the front. We'll see if it changes. The next technique is the magic knot or the magic loop. This takes the idea of a simple, humble knot and adds a few extra steps and a whole lot of sophistication. To perform the magic loop, place one of the strands on top of the other and the other strand under. Then you can tie a simple knot onto the strand itself. Then simply pull and cut off the excess. As you can see, it is an incredibly durable and strong knot. So although the speed slows down slightly because you're tying 2 yarns and there might be a tiny little learning curve to tying the knot, it does provide a very strong knot and you will not have to weave in the ends. You can just chop it off. With this strong knot, it is the perfect joining method if you want to knit something for babies or for your pets or for small children, things that you want to be machine washable because that knot is not going anywhere. For my preference, I'm going to put this just behind the humble, simple knot. I am fancy. The next main category is double knitting, aka knitting with 2 strands. The first method in this category is the name itself, double knitting. So you simply lay your new yarn on top of the old one and knit as if they are 1 strand. After about 4 or 5 stitches, the new ball is secure and you can drop the tail and just knit with the new strand. In terms of speed, it's definitely faster than the magic knot. The difficulty is almost non-existent. The main drawback of this technique is the fact that you obviously double the thickness for those few stitches. Therefore, I would only recommend this technique if you are working with DK weight yarn or lighter. This is actually my personal go-to technique if I am using fingering weight yarn or lace weight yarn. Quite a few of you guys agree with me as well, as 6 of you guys regularly use this technique. I'm gonna actually place it behind the simple knot and in front of the magic knot, just because, again, I'm lazy. I don't want to be tying knots, I want to knit. The next technique under this category is the Clasped Weft. Try and say that 3 times fast. Clasped Weft, Clasped Weft, Clasped Weft. So confession, I've literally never heard of this technique before, and only 2 of you guys use this as your regular go-to. In this technique, you interlock your old yarn with your new yarn and start knitting double with the old yarn first. Once you pass the interlocking section, knit double with the new yarn. I was incredibly surprised by how quick and easy this technique is. And it adds extra security because the 2 yarns are interlocked together, so it's not going anywhere. So as much as this was a pleasant surprise and it was very easy to use, I'm just gonna place it down here simply because there's a better alternative. The last technique doesn't actually involve knitting 2 strands as one, but you still are working 2 strands nonetheless, and that is fair isle knitting. In this technique, you knit 1 stitch with the old yarn. Then, like the first method, you attach the new yarn to knit the second stitch. Then you alternate stitches between the old yarn and the new yarn. After about 6 to 8 stitches, I would say you can drop the tail and continue just knitting with the new strand of yarn. In terms of speed, if you're experienced in it, it's quick, it's easy, you don't have to think much about it. But in terms of accessibility and difficulty in general, it's not very accessible to absolute beginners. The appearance though is unclockable and it is beautiful. But another little drawback is that you still have to weave in the ends. So is it really worth using a more advanced technique when you still have to go back at the end and weave the ends? Although it's beautiful and easy if you know how to fair isle, I'm just gonna place it down here. Sorry. The last category is splicing. This is when you can take 2 pieces of yarn and just like magic, you turn into one cohesive piece. The first technique I'm going to talk about in this category is braiding. This was actually the very first technique taught to me by my mom when I first started knitting. And like the name suggests, you unravel one side of the yarn into 2 separate pieces, place the new yarn in between the fork of the 2, and start braiding. Now, sorry mom, I hate this technique. It is so slow, it is difficult, and to be honest with you, the appearance does not make it worth it. Active braiding it changes the texture of the yarn even for that little bit, and it really affects the drape of your piece. So for that, I'm just gonna stick it right at the bottom. The next technique is by far the most popular in my little impromptu survey, with a whopping 23 of you guys saying that you like to use this technique, and that is spit splicing. To perform the spit splice, you unravel both the new and the old yarn. Then you cut off a little bit of the fiber on each side to ensure that when you splice it together, it doesn't double in thickness. A lot of people like to just put it in their mouth to get it a little bit wet. Then you place the 2 strands on top of each other and rub them vigorously. This causes the yarn to felt together, magically making it into one cohesive strand of yarn. I see why you guys all love it. It's pretty quick. You just have to get a little pair of scissors to chop off a little bit of the fiber. You don't need extra materials. You can just use your spit, although that deeply creeps me out, and it does just work with water. Oh, thank God. And it is virtually unclockable. The one big, massive drawback to this technique is that it only works on animal fibers. So if you're using acrylic or cotton, you're gonna have to opt for one of these other options. So I'm just gonna put it right at the top. The last technique in this category is the Russian join. Now, if this name intimidates you, it should. It's quite difficult, but it's still very, very popular amongst you guys, with 10 of you guys regularly using this as your go-to method. To achieve the Russian join, you thread one of the strands through a sharp tapestry needle and stick the needle through the center of that same strand. Pull the needle through, making sure you keep a little loop at the end. Repeat this process with the other strand, but before you pierce the needle through the yarn, push it through the loop you created. Once you've finished, the yarn has created a strong yet seamless join. This is like the ultimate overachieving technique. I agree, the appearance is wonderful. The appearance might be the best out of all these techniques, but it takes so long. Granted, this was the first time I ever tried, and it did take me 3 to 4 tries before finally getting the hang of it. Okay, this is difficult because I cannot imagine myself doing this ever again, but it is good. I'm just gonna put it just under middle. So now that we've talked through all the 9 most popular techniques, I might do a little bit of adjusting. I think even though the just keep knitting is very bog standard, I don't really see myself ever using it. I don't see a reason why I would actively make loose stitches or a hole just to have to go back and repair it later. So I'm actually gonna put it down here in between Fair Isle and Clasped Weft. I'm still quite torn on the Russian join. It looks so good, but I will literally never do this. And props to you guys who do. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna put it one step higher. I'm gonna put it in front of the magic knot because the overall effect is just too good to ignore. And the magic knot might create a little big bump. This is pretty surprising. I personally don't ever use the spit splice, but today when I tried it, I really liked it and I might be convinced to become a spitterer now. That doesn't sound right. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a tie for first place for the Cletus ranking because not all things you can split splice. So when you can't split splice, I would opt for a simple knot. Okay, I think we have it. This is Cletus's definitive list according to his own opinion and not anyone else's. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. Question of the day, tell me what is your favorite go-to method, and is there a method here that you just learned about that you might want to give it a go? For me, it's the spit splice, hands down. You guys are right, it's amazing. I'm gonna start using it from now on. If you guys found value in this video, please consider sharing this video, liking, and subscribing. And please consider following me over on Instagram at Cletus Tries Knitting. There I post way more frequently. And perhaps if I make another little ranking video again, you can have your little input too. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Bye!